and we should be ready to go.
All right.
And hello! And we're live. Hello, welcome to Torn Book Club. This is, the 15th of March. It's the Ides of March, so watch your back.
Yeah, in 10 days, well, in the Gregorian calendar at least, 10 days from now, Frodo destroys the ring.
Oh, yeah, That's right, yes.
Gondorian New Year.
And so with me on the show today is Suvi, who you may have seen on, have you been on Torn Tuesday before?
Not Torn Tuesday. I've been just the live streams at
you've done the live streams at Comic-Con
and then more recently
the One Party.
Yeah.
So if you watch any of our live streams, I'm sure you've seen Suvi, and she's agreed to come to discuss. What is this thing we're doing? Oh yeah, the Silmarillion. And I've been seeing in the chat that a few people have been saying that this is their first time reading it, or they haven't read it yet, and that's great. That's what we're going to be going over here, is sort of giving a little bit of an overview or a primer or an early discussion, and to sort of bring you into the Silmarillion. And so this is going to be over the course of many, many episodes, going through this whole thing chapter by chapter, or a couple chapters by a couple chapters.
And
so
you might have to split up the bigger ones into two parts.
I mean, Baron and Luthien, that's a really big one.
That's a big one.
So for the purposes of this episode, we're going to be talking about the first two chapters, which are deceptively dense. They are.
They're just a few pages long, but in those few pages,
let me see if I can get this pronunciation right. Ainulindalë.
Yeah, close enough.
Close enough. and Valaquenta. And that is the last time I'm going to try pronouncing that. Essentially what these two chapters are is the creation myth of Middle-earth. And it's very dense. They're probably only a few pages long each, but this is one of those books that I would say there is not a single wasted sentence in this.
No.
And in many cases, like one of those sentences, a whole bunch of stuff happens. Like a little bit further on in the story, there's one section where they say there's a march of men who basically go through a forest, and the text is basically they enter the forest, but they didn't know the forest had lots of fell creatures in it, and so the journey took much longer, and many of them perished along the way. And that's it.
Yeah.
I'm like, there was a whole movie in there.
There really is. It's a shame that Tolkien just simply ran out of time to flesh out all those stories, or all the stories he wanted to flesh out.
Yeah, and the history of this is very interesting, because this whole thing really began with Tolkien creating different languages and creating a mythology around those languages, and he put it together over many, many years in little notebooks, and he would call it the Book of Lost Tales, which was published later as part of the history of Middle-earth. And I was just watching an interview with Christopher Tolkien about this, and he was talking about how the earlier stories were much lighter, more detailed, and he kept refining and refining until he finally created something that is a lot more like an old Icelandic saga, where you basically just have the most bare bones of the story in there, just to get you from point A to point B. Mm-hmm. And he did that deliberately to condense this humongous history that he had developed over decades to something manageable and readable. And he had always intended the Silmarillion to be a part of a much larger Middle-earth saga. Or he had always intended the Silmarillion to come out as a follow-up to The Lord of the Rings.
What he really wanted to do, I remember reading in his biography by Humphrey Carpenter, is that he desperately wanted to publish the Silmarillion alongside the Lord of the Rings, but unfortunately he was unable to get that agreement.
Yeah, his publisher didn't really want to go that route, unfortunately, and in the Silmarillion, I believe it's the second edition that came out in '99. There's a second preface by Christopher Tolkien where he basically gives this huge letter that Tolkien wrote to his publisher that outlines basically the entire story of the Silmarillion and how it relates to Lord of the Rings.
Right.
And it's a huge, huge letter. It explains a lot of what he wanted to do with it, a lot of his thinking behind it. And it's a fascinating read. But one of the things I also found interesting was that Tolkien's original intention with The Hobbit had absolutely nothing to do with Middle-earth at all.
Right.
Like, he had been working on these stories on his own on the side for years, and one of the things that he loved to do was create little stories for his children, and that's essentially what The Hobbit developed into was a children's story for his kids, and then it sold really well, and the publisher said, "Well, we want a sequel."
Yeah.
And so he began writing The Lord of the Rings, and at the time, The Lord of the Rings still had nothing to do with the Silmarillion. But like any good artist, you can't really keep those two worlds too separate. And so he began integrating elements from the Silmarillion into the Lord of the Rings, probably most notably with the character of Galadriel, who has a small but very memorable role in Lord of the Rings, and then has a huge role in the Silmarillion.
Yeah, it's, I mean, you really notice how he changed from lighthearted children's tale, where he was going for, about no more than 20 chapters for Lord of the Rings. Then it develops more and more into the style of a more epic saga as you get into Return of the King. But what makes it charming, at least in my opinion, is that Hobbit element to it. So.
Yeah. And Marfels is asking a good question. So he wrote the Silmarillion. So when he wrote the Silmarillion, he had no rings in mind.
Completely correct.
Absolutely true. In fact, the rings don't even play a part in the Silmarillion until the very end, and it almost feels like it was tacked on as sort of like a bridge between the Silmarillion and the Lord of the Rings. Sauron is mentioned early on in the Silmarillion, and we'll get to that. But he doesn't play a very big role in it. There is another character who plays a much bigger role. So
Sauron's boss.
Yeah, Sauron's boss, the true Lord of Darkness. So let's dive right into this with the first part.
The Ainulindalë.
There you go, the Ainulindale. I was listening to an audiobook and he pronounced it Ainulindale.
Ainulindalë? Yeah.
It's fairly close. So this is a creation myth. And it's I've read a lot of different creation stories over the years, and I still say that this is probably my favorite one. And I'll explain why. First of all, it starts with just one character, and that character is Eru Ilúvatar. And he is known as the One. He goes by a lot of different names, but Eru and Ilúvatar are his two main names. And he exists completely alone in the void, and he is the keeper of something called the light imperishable, or the fire imperishable, or the secret fire, or the undying light. It goes by a lot of different names, but essentially this light is the source of all existence in the universe, and he uses that first to create a bunch of beings called the Ainur. And these Ainur, he gives to them the gift of music. He wants them to play music. And so he explains to them how to play their different parts, gives them some themes to go with, and they sort of play on their own a little bit. Like one of them will play this bit here, one of them will play this little bit there, and they sort of let one another take their turn. And it isn't until Eru says, "You know what? Yeah, it actually sounded a lot better if you all played together." And so he gives them this big theme, and they all learn to play together, and they start creating this big, beautiful symphony. And as all of this is happening, they all sort of have their own gifts and their own traits and their own skills. And in this part, we focus primarily on 4 different Ainur out of the multitudes that there are. And those 4 are Manwe, um, we have Manwe, Aule, Ulmo, and the most important one of the group, Melkor.
Guess which one is the bad guy?
Yeah, never would have guessed, right? So, now, and Erebani's saying, I never quite understood what the secret fire was. Now I know. And yes, that's true. It is mentioned in the Fellowship of the Ring when Gandalf is confronting the Balrog. He calls himself, he says, I am the servant of the secret fire. Well, this is what that secret fire is. It is the light of all creation.
Yeah, made by the One.
Made by the One. So that sort of tells you just like how important Gandalf really is. So of these 4, Melkor is the one who has the strongest gifts of wisdom and knowledge, and he sort of decides, I don't want to be a part of this big symphony. I don't want to be part of something bigger. I want to do my own thing. I want to create my own tune. And so he starts going off on his own and playing his own song and really making it awful for everybody else because he's disrupting all their music. And he also leaves for a while and goes off into the void to try to find this secret fire, this light imperishable, because he wants the light of creation for himself to create his own stuff. But what he doesn't know is that the secret fire actually resides within Eru. So he can't go somewhere else and find it. So eventually he comes back and starts just wreaking havoc with the music for all the other Ainur to the point where they are ready to just give up.
Yeah,
like they just want to stop playing.
And they sort of follow his lead. They start just following him because it's like, okay, fine, if you're going to be so, if you're going to be so loud, we'll just follow your lead and try to make something out of it.
Exactly. And then finally Eru steps in and says, actually, I have a whole new theme for you, and a lot of it is based off of what Melkor was doing. And it's sort of like, no, Suzanne is right. Does he actually do that during the song? He actually does that before he joins the song. I sort of messed it up a little bit. He goes off to try to find the secret fire before joining the song and ruining stuff.
No, it was not. That was not in the Silmarillion until they get into the Second Age, which is a very small part of the Silmarillion as a whole. The Silmarillion covers mostly the
First Age.
Yeah, the First Age, and then the age before that, like the Age of the Trees and the Age of the Lamps, which is also a small part, even though it's like a gazillion amount of years.
Yeah.
The amount of years is a little bit difficult to calculate, because Tolkien changed his mind a couple times.
Yeah, and he retconned quite a bit into The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings to make them part of this larger mythology. But at the same time, the mythology within the Silmarillion is itself very self-contained and sort of has these bridge chapters at the end to connect it to the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit. Um, so so eventually they create more music that that Melkor is still really not wanting to be a part of it. He's still trying to create his own chaos, and and then um, and then finally, now let me see if I can get my sequence of events correct here. Um, Eru stops them again and creates a third theme that is wholly his own. They don't have any part of this third theme, but it completely blows their minds, and they absolutely adore it. And then, um, but Melkor can't stand it, and he gets louder and more chaotic until finally, when nobody can stand it anymore, Eru says, "Stop." And all the music stops. And then Eru tells all the Ainur, "Now I have to show you what you've been doing with all this music," and he shows them a vision. And that vision is essentially the Earth, Middle Earth, the universe,
Mm-hmm.
and
Arda.
Arda.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, beyond that is Ao, which is sort of like the existence of the universe itself, or like the known universe. At least that's sort of how I saw it, because he sort of says that Ea is wide and vast beyond the knowledge of men and elves.
Yeah. And Suzanne, yeah, you make a good point. He wanted full control,
Yeah.
and out of that control, he created chaos because you can't have two orchestrators.
You can't have two composers. But yeah, what's interesting is particularly because you have the two characters of Manwë and Melkor, and they're both sort of on equal footing as far as their abilities go.
And aren't they're brothers?
They're brothers, yeah. And Manwë is much more. He's very loyal to Eru, and he believes in the music, and he believes in the vision that he's seeing, and he wants to do right by it. He wants to create something wonderful out of it. Whereas Melkor sees all of that and says, "I want to control it,"
Mm-hmm.
and that's really where the rift comes from. And even when Eru shows them all this vision, even Melkor stops and says, "This is gorgeous," and for a little while he sort of goes along with it.
Mm-hmm.
Like he sort of sees, like, okay, this was the final vision of Eru, and this was so not what I was expecting, so maybe there is more to this than I believed. But of course that doesn't last. And so Eru shows them this vision, and he shows them the history of or what will be the world. He shows the creation of the world, and he shows, most importantly, the awakening of the children of Iluvatar, which are men and elves, or I should say elves and men, because elves come first, men come second. And Marfels is saying, well, now they're making comparisons between the angels of like Gabriel versus Lucifer is like Manwë versus Melkor. Marfels is saying, wouldn't that be Michael? I would say no, because Michael is much more of a warrior, and so to me that likens him more to another character named Tulkas.
Tulkas, yeah. Michael and Tulkas.
Mm-hmm. or Tulkas versus Melkor, because he really goes on. He really goes after him.
Yeah, and I do agree. When I first read the Silmarillion, I was 14, I believe, mm-hmm. and it was definitely a difficult read at 14. Mm-hmm. And I also, the first couple chapters, I was like, this is like Genesis.
It really is. It's very much like Genesis,
Yeah.
but I would say it's a way more creative Genesis.
Yeah. Well, I mean, something to keep in mind is that Tolkien was a very devout Catholic.
Yes.
So
Yes, he was.
I definitely think he was partially inspired by the Bible, at least for those first couple of chapters, and then in other parts of the Silmarillion, you see inspiration from mythology, from Norse mythology, and from Finnish mythology with with the children of Hurin.
Yeah.
I actually read the Kalevala back in high school as well.
Oh, okay.
That was insane.
Yeah. You read a lot of intense stuff in high school.
Yeah.
What were we talking about? We were talking about the children of Iluvatar. I want to try to bring us back on track here. So they see the growing of the children of Iluvatar, and but they don't see the entire history of the world. They don't see where all of this will ultimately end. They see up to a certain point, and then Eru stops the vision, and then he says, "And now I create for you Ea," which is pretty much like
let it be. That's how it's described. It's the world.
Yeah, I would say that Ea is more than the world. I would say that it is the known universe. Because like I was saying, there. Let me see if I can find the passage here. Because it's right at the beginning of the Valaquenta.
About Ea?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's right there at the beginning.
Yeah. Long they labored in the regions of Ea, which are vast beyond the thought of elves and men. So I would say that to me says it's something that's more like the known universe, more it's not just the Earth, it's the stars and outer space and all the other worlds.
Ea?
Ea? E-A.
Yeah, with the
what's
that, umlaut?
With a little umlaut over the A.
Ea.
But within Ea is the place for the birth of the children of Iluvatar, which is called Arda, or the Kingdom of Earth.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting, he doesn't call it Middle Earth, he calls it the Kingdom of Earth.
Yeah, because there is actually more to Arda than just Middle Earth.
Yep.
There's also Valinor, which is itself almost a complete separate continent.
Yeah, it really is. It's huge. And then beyond that small section of Middle Earth, you have that whole unexplored region that's never really talked about.
Yeah, Farharad, and you never, even on the maps, it's very
vague.
Empty.
It really is.
And so he says to the Ainur, "This is your task to create Arda the way that you've seen in the vision." And so many of the Ainur, not all of them, but many of them go down to. Suzanne is saying Valinor is heaven / Mount Olympus. You're partly right, Suzanne. Valinor is actually much larger. I would say a good comparison to Mount Olympus would be the tower of I think it's called Tanaquetil.
Tanaquetil? Tanaquetil? Yeah.
Yeah. Marfles is asking then, what is the Grey Havens? The Grey Havens is the launching point for Middle Earth to get to Valinor.
Yeah, and after the destruction of Numenor, only people permitted by Eru are, or I guess the Valar. I'm not sure who makes the actual permission. Because
I think it's Eru because they are the children of Iluvatar.
Yeah. So, but yeah, after the destruction of Numenor, only elves and very, very special people. Like
Yeah,
the
but-
ring bearers get to go
But
there.
we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, let's get back on track.
Yeah. We're only talking about the creation point at this point. Like, we're not even getting into the children of Iluvatar yet, which is what the main bulk of the Silmarillion is about.
Elves and men.
Elves and men, and their creations and their great their tragedies, because there's some serious tragedies
Yeah,
in there.
it's a really sad book sometimes.
It really is.
It's like, oh, more dead elves, woohoo!
Yeah. So they go down and they begin to form Arda and make it ready for the children of Iluvatar. And all the while, Melkor is just ruining everything that they're creating. Like he says at some points, like they would build up a mountain, or who would make the mountain? Aule would make mountains, wouldn't he? Aule would make a mountain. Melkor would knock it down. They would carve out an ocean. Melkor would fill it up.
Yeah. So maybe let's get to who exactly were the Valar that went down.
Yeah. So it should be noted that the Ainur, once they enter Arda, they take on the Elvish name of Valar, which means those with power, and they're essentially the gods, or the closest thing to it, and that takes us into the Valaquenta,
That's
which-
a neat illustration.
Yeah, that's a cool illustration of them. And this chapter is mostly sort of outlining who they all are and what they all do. So this is where the big visual aids that I've created come into play. We have the main ones, the Valar, and there are 14 of them. 15 if you count Melkor, which they don't.
Yeah. Once he started just ruining everything, they sort of cast him out.
Yeah, they don't consider him a Valar. He instead sort of just a Valar.
Yeah.
A Valar. Sorry.
Yeah, no,
Valar is singular. Valar is plural.
Yeah. One of the fun things with Tolkien, of course, is with his both of his Elvish languages, there are different plural rules.
Oh God,
Yeah.
yes.
Quenya, which is what the word Valar is from, is easy. Vala is singular, Valar is plural. It's with Sindarin that it gets more complicated.
Yeah. And there's actually a whole section in the Silmarillion that sort of gives you a breakdown of how to use Elvish and how to pronounce stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, dropping keyboards. So let's begin going through these 14 Valar. So we had the top three who we talked about briefly, Manwë, Aule, and Ulmo. And they're kind of the they're pretty much the top three Valar, if you're gonna, like, I would, as Tolkien would put it, chiefest among them.
Yeah. I the most powerful.
Yeah. And so Manwë, which translates to, I'm reading this now, Blessed One, he's essentially the king of Arda, or he's set up as the king of Arda, and he's the boss of all the Valar. And he's the one who is most privy to Eru's plan, to what Iluvatar wants, and so he's the one who sort of lays down all the commandments to all of the other Valar. Then we have Aule, who is the smith, and he's a craftsman. He loves to build things, and he sort of goes against Eru's wishes at one point, but that's for another episode. He's very strong-willed, and he loves the earth, and he loves to create things, and so he's the craftsman. And a lot of the people who are craftsmen in Middle Earth give their tribute to Aule. And And so Aravandi's getting ahead of us and naming all of the Valar. Don't worry, we're going to get to them all.
Yeah. And then I wanted to address one of Suzanne's points. While Melkor was the mightiest of the Ainur, I can't say that, he wasn't considered one of the Valar once he was cast out of that order. So after he was cast out, Manwë sort of takes over as being the best. Melkor then gets his own little category of evil overlord, I suppose.
Yes. Yeah, he's sort of the Lord of Chaos, essentially, in the beginning. And then last we have Ulmo, who is the Lord of the Waters. And one of the interesting things in this is how he talks about how the waters are the closest thing to something in Arda that contains the song of Ilúvatar. And so Ulmo loves the water, and he wants to just be a part of that forever. And he tends to spend most of his time way out deep in the oceans. He doesn't really mingle with the Valar too much unless there's a really powerful need, like something major is going on. He tends to just sort of stay out of the way and control the waters on his own. And so then we get into some of the other Valar. We have Varda, also known as Elbereth, who is the wife of Manwë, and she is the mistress of light. She is the
Queen of Stars.
The Queen of Stars, and so that's why when all of the elves call out to the stars, the main call is Elbereth Gilthoniel, which is calling out to Varda. And interestingly, Melkor fears her more than any other Valar, any of the other Valar, because she rejected him. He made a play for her to be his mate, and she rejected him, or he made a play for her to join him, and she said no, and really sort of like laid the smackdown on him, and so. And Melkor never forgot that and always sort of lived in fear of her to a certain degree. And that's the thing that I like about Melkor. Even though he is this Lord of Darkness, he also has many faults and many fears and many weaknesses, which are explored much deeper as we get into the story. And next, we have Yavanna, who is the spouse of Aule, and she is the queen of she is the Earth Mother. And the main form that she takes is that of a giant tree, which is called Kementari. And she's the queen of the trees, the leaves, the fields, everything that grows. And all the lesser animals. Then who do we have next? The Fianturi, the Masters of the Spirits. These are Namo and Irmo. And where are they in this whole list here? Oh, there they are. Namo is known also. They're named after the areas where they live. For Namo, it's Mandos, and Irmo is Lorien, which I'm sure many of you know.
Yeah, Lorien they of course took that name into Middle Earth, named after the place in Valinor.
Yeah, and Mandos, they tend to go more by those names, Mandos and Lorien, than they do Namo and Irmo. Mandos is the judge. And he's also a bit of a prophecyr.
Yes, Lorien is a male.
But who is asking that? Oh, Marple's asking Lorien is male. Yes, they're brothers. And Suzanne is saying, like, Slytherin is a classic story plot point that the most clever and cunning are often evil. And that's very true. And Melkor is definitely clever and cunning, but he's also not very forward-thinking to his...
Which is what finally gets him.
Yeah. And so, yes, Lorien is the Lord of Visions, and Mondos is the Lord of Prophecy, or Doom.
Yeah, Tolkien uses the word doom in a very interesting way. Doom it seems to have multiple meanings. Like Mount Doom is foreboding and evil, but
but then
when it comes with Mandos, Doom is more...
It's more fate.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Jinx.
It's more fate or destiny, and of course a lot of what Mandos hands down as fate or destiny or prophecy tend not to be very happy. So I guess Doom kind of works there.
Yeah, and then, of course, it's like, what he does hand down, they try to, go against it, but by trying to go against it, they ultimately fulfill it.
Yes. And that
Catch-22.
That comes into play big time with Feanor, which...
Oh, Feanor.
Oh, Feanor. That is many, many episodes. So next is Vaire. I need to look up here.
Vaire?
Vaire.
Yeah.
The Weaver, and she weaves the webs of time that are in the halls of the dead. Which should be noted, the halls of the dead are in the Tower of Mandos.
Halls, tower, underground cellar, who knows what it is.
Yeah. And she is the mistress of fate and time and weaving. That's about all we got on her. And then we have Este, who is the mistress of healing, and she is the spouse of Irmo. Vaire is the spouse of Namo, or Mandos, which is why she lives there. That makes sense now. So, where are we here? So, yeah, Este is she is the mistress of healing, and so she's she's a healer, and that's essentially her role. There isn't too much about Vaire and Este, at least in this part, and not too much later on.
Not really.
Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of these characters, and not all of them play big roles, but some of them do. Next, we have Nienna. Now, I love Nienna. She is the mourner. She is the weeper. And she doesn't have a spouse. She dwells by herself.
And she's the sister of Namo and Irmo.
Yes, she's their sister. And she's the one who basically mourns for all the loss and death in the world. But through that mourning, she derives pity and hope, or I'd like to say compassion. And so through that, you actually have a much greater wisdom. And she takes under her wing, or she teaches somebody many lessons about pity, hope, and compassion, who we'll get to in a little bit. And next is Tulkas, the warrior, the steadfast.
And he was one of the last Valar, one of the last Valar to enter, if I remember correctly.
Yes, he was. He's very hot-headed. He's the master of physical prowess, and he loves feats of strength. He loves showing off feats of strength, and so one of his tasks that he takes to himself is to hunt down Melkor. And he loves hunting down Melkor, and he loves beating up Melkor. And Melkor absolutely hates him.
To address Suzanne's question,
yeah.
they're all like...
we should say, Suzanne is asking, aren't they all brothers and sisters?
Yeah.
No, they're not.
I mean, at least not... they're all related in that they were created at the same time and they're the same group, but Tolkien specifically states these three are siblings, these two are spouses, and then gives them certain groupings.
Yeah, and those groupings are more along the lines of their characteristics. Like Manwë and Melkor are brothers because they're very like in character. Namo and Irmo are brothers because they're very like in their character, and some are created earlier and later than others.
Oh, Yeah. I also wanted to note that Ale and Yavanna are also married.
Yes, yes, I did mention that, did I?
Did you?
I think I did. Yeah.
Okay.
I know there's a lot to get through, and it's hard to keep track of all of them.
Mm-hmm.
So then we have the spouse of Tulkas, who is Nessa, and she's a dancer. That's about it. there isn't a whole lot that we say about Nessa, or that's said about Nessa, other than she's the spouse of Tulkas. Marfels is asking, dumb question, but do they have kids?
I know in the beginning, in Tolkien's early draft, Eonwë was the kid of Manwë and Varda.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
But
okay.
he ended up changing that, and that fact was dropped by the Silmarillion, was it not?
Definitely was by the Silmarillion,
okay, yeah,
because that's not in there for sure. I just read that.
okay, so yeah. So it used to be, but not anymore. No kids mentioned in the most final version that we have of the Silmarillion. But once upon a time, yes.
But Marfels, that's not a dumb question. That's actually a very good question.
Yeah, that's a great question. I like it.
So who do we have next on this list? We're almost through them all. Orome.
Yes, he's one of my favorites.
Well, tell us a little bit about Orome.
Orome is the huntsman.
Yes.
He has a wonderful horse that I cannot recall the name of right now. It starts with an M.
Yeah. Oh man, it was just on the tip of my tongue, but it's not on this page. Dang it. But
he is actually the one that ends up exploring Middle Earth when no one else really will, and because he does, he finds some pretty amazing things. Mm-hmm. And interestingly enough, I believe that the Rohirrim, they worship one called Bema, and I believe Bema is Orome.
That could be.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the last Vala that we have is Vanna, who is, of course, the spouse of Orome. And again, not a lot is said about her, but she's the sister of Yavanna, and she's associated mostly with springtime. What did
Nahar?
Nahar is Orome's horse. Thank you, Temple.
Tolkien always liked the horses.
Oh yeah, he loves the horses.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like I love reading about Orome's sojourns into Middle Earth with Nahar, and Orome is the one who finds the children, because
at least the elves,
yeah. Eru, being the wonderful, loving deity that he is, he says, okay, the children of Iluvatar are coming. I'm not going to tell you specifically when or specifically where.
Have fun.
Yeah, and so it's up to Orome to go out and find them, and Suzanne says, and they all have servant demigods like muses, and those are the Maiar, and the Maiar are next. Now it should be noted that the Maiar are not they're also Ainur, just like the Valar, but the Maiar don't play as large a role.
Yeah, they're not as powerful.
They weren't as powerful. Like going back to the music metaphor of the creation of the universe. If all the Ainur were an orchestra, then the Valar would be first chairs for all the different instruments. Maiar would be second and third chairs. So important, don't play as big a role, but they help fill everything out.
And it's important to note that while Tolkien gave the number of Valar, 14, then plus the one that was thrown out, Melkor, he never gave an exact number for how many Maiar went. And the number of Maiar that we know of is actually less than the number of Valar that we know of, even though there's a lot more.
He names a number of Maiar in the book, but not all of them, and only just a few of them. But here are the ones that he names.
Yeah, and it is important to note that he doesn't name most of the wizards. He only names one wizard in the book. At least At first.
At first, yeah. At this point, he names only one of them, and we'll get to him in a second. There's Ilmare and Eonwe. Where are they? Okay, yeah. So, yeah, you might.
And then Ilmare is the servant of Varda, so
Yeah.
she helps.
Yeah, let's see. She is. She's this. Ilmare is. Ilmare is the heavenly starlight. So she and Eonwe is the herald of Manwe. So.
And there's not too much else.
Yeah, there is.
Told about them. I mean,
yeah, I mean,
Eonwe plays a bit more of a role at the end of the Silmarillion, but
yeah, and Ilmare never really figures into it much at all.
Right.
But the next two are actually pretty important, Ase and Uinen, and these are the Maiar who serve Ulmo, the Lord of the Seas, and Ose is given the more coastal areas, and he loves that, and he loves storms. And in fact, he actually gets tempted by Melkor at one point. And Melkor encourages Ase to make more storms and make lots of storms, make tons and tons of storms. And it's his spouse, Uinen, who finally takes Ase and takes him to Ulmo, and Ulmo snaps him out of it. Mm-hmm. But Ase never really loses that love of storms, and so he will still create storms that are not commanded by Ulmo. And so a lot of the shipmen of Middle Earth tend to not think of
highly.
Yeah, they don't think very much of Ase, and so they usually tend to appeal to Uinen to slap Ase and put him in his place and have him stop making storms. And so then we have Melian, who is, I believe she's a Maiar of Yavanna. Is that correct?
That or Lorien, I do not remember.
Yeah, let me see if I can find her here. She's attached to Vanna and Este. Okay, and so yeah, she's part of Lorien, and so she's a forest Maiar, and she plays a very big role in things to come. But I don't want to get into that yet.
Yeah. Melian has a big role, but let's not spoil it.
Yeah, we don't want to spoil it too much. Even though Suzanne and Eravandi are getting way ahead of us in the chat and talking about anything and everything.
No, good for them.
Yeah.
And they can.
I love that.
Yeah, and they can answer any questions that we can't get to immediately.
Yeah, we're trying to stay on top of it, but you two are doing a great job.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then we have one last. Maiar, who is mentioned. Maia. I'm gonna be doing that the whole time. one last Maia who is mentioned briefly, and his name is Olorin.
Who you guys might know as Gandalf.
Wait a sec.
They already spoiled it.
Yeah, I know, they already spoiled it. So, but Olorin, he spends a lot of his time in Lorien, learning compassion and pity and hope from Nienna. And it says he doesn't play too much in the Silmarillion, but he plays a bigger role later on in the story as, you guessed it, Gandalf the Grey.
Oh, nice picture.
And Suzanne mentioned earlier that Kurumo is Sarumann, who is another Maia who isn't mentioned in this chapter, and I don't know if he's mentioned in the Silmarillion at all. He may be. But maybe later
at the end, like in the Third Age.
Yeah, maybe towards the end.
And then.
But it should be noted. Well, okay, we'll get to that.
And then, as Iruvande mentioned, Ainulindalë is Radagast, who is not mentioned. That name is not mentioned in the Silmarillion or Lord of the Rings, but actually in Unfinished Tales.
Yeah. And Marbles is saying, so Lorien is the name of a Valar and a forest?
Yes.
Yes. And I know that's it's kind of a weird thing to think of, especially when the name of the place you live is your name.
Yeah, it's the name of his forest in Valinor, and it's also the name of him and it's also the name of the forest in Middle-earth named after him / his home.
Yeah.
So it's,
So
it's
so Lorien, the forest of Lothlorien, is not the Lorien of this Lorien.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Does that make sense? I just made Marvel's brain explode.
Galadriel's Lothlorien is not.
It's not Lorien.
Yeah.
Wow.
That name was reused more than once.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, I think I just made Marvel's head explode.
And a character on Babylon 5.
Yes, very true. So those are the Maiar who are named in the book. There are many, many others. Some who come into play later, some who don't.
Yeah, because it's mentioned that many of them have many different servants, and they just don't get names.
Yeah. But the important ones do.
Yeah.
And so then it brings us to the last part of this, which is the enemies. Dun dun dun. There are essentially 3 that are mentioned in this part of the book. The first being the big one, if this thing would work, Melkor, also known as Morgoth. And Morgoth means Dark Lord of the World, I think.
Dark Enemy.
Dark Enemy of the World, yeah.
Yeah.
And he's given that name by Feanor, later on, who is an elf king. He is a king, yes?
Elf prince.
Or prince or king. Feanor hates Melkor with every fiber of his being. And he hates him so much that he refuses to call him by his proper name Melkor and instead gives him the name Morgoth.
Which is the name he eventually gets known by in history.
Yes.
So take that.
There you go. And so he is the Lord of Darkness. He ruins everything. He is jealous of everything that the Valar create.
He's a bit of a control freak.
He's very much a control freak. And one of the things that he does is he will take a lot of the things that the Valar have created and try to corrupt them. And one of the first things that he corrupts are various Maiar from the Valar. Most of them become what are known as Valoralkar, or the Balrogs.
Yeah. Many of the Maiar lose their ability to shift and shape in forms. Something that's important to note is that the Valar and the Maiar could basically change in form as needed, and the forms that you see in illustrations are the forms that they preferred to take. But I don't remember if Melkor eventually lost his ability to change form or not. I know Sauron did by the Third Age. He basically lost that ability.
Well, he lost that ability when he poured all of his power into the rings.
Yeah, and after the sinking of Numenor.
Yeah.
But I believe that the Balrogs also were once upon a time the Maiar. I believe they also lost the ability to shift into something more pleasant.
They were created mostly, or they were corrupted mostly to be lieutenants to Melkor. What is that?
And I completely agree. They do have wings.
Yes.
I am a pro wing girl.
Balrogs with wings. Yes.
They were just not very efficient wings.
Now, Suzanne is making a good point about the similarity between Melkor and Lucifer, which is that Lucifer is said not to be able to create life, but to warp it.
Mm-mm.
Now, to be fair, the Valar really can't create life either. They can create lesser beings, but as far as something like elves and men, the only person or the only being who has the power to create something like that is Eru Ilúvatar.
Yeah, a couple of the Valar do get into the
into the creation game, but that's
for later. That's
for later. That's a spoiler for later. But of these lieutenants, his chief lieutenant is, you might know him, Sauron, also known as Gorthar the Cruel.
He was once before he was Sauron. He was
He was-
Myron, I believe.
Did he have? I couldn't find his name before he became Sauron.
I believe it was Myron.
Okay.
I would have to do.
Now he was a Maiar who served Aule initially. So he was a craftsman, which is why he worked on creating the Rings of Power, because those played to his strengths. But he is also the one who takes over for Morgoth when Morgoth meets his fate. I don't want to spoil it.
Morgoth gets what's coming to him eventually.
But Sauron is also not as powerful or as evil as Melkor, because he spent so much of his time serving somebody other than himself. First he was serving Aule, then he was serving Melkor.
Yeah. Is that Marfels? It's important to note that, as I mentioned, the Valar and the Maiar could shapeshift. One of Sauron's famous forms in the Second Age is an elf known as Anatar.
Right.
And he was supposed to be absolutely ridiculously gorgeous, you know.
Yeah.
Elf women would fling themselves at the... No, joke.
Well, yeah, because Marvels is saying, I never pictured Sauron as a handsome dude.
Yeah.
But it's true. Like, part of what made Sauron so powerful, especially early on, was his ability to entice and seduce.
Yeah, he was a good-looking bloke when he wanted to be, until he lost that ability, but that doesn't happen for several thousand years.
Yeah, and he's done plenty of damage by that time.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the main enemies, and those are all of the characters who are introduced in these 2 chapters.
2 chapters of, like, what, 20-ish pages?
Yeah, it's probably only about 15, 20 pages altogether, but like I was saying earlier, in the Silmarillion, there is not a wasted sentence in this book.
There really isn't. It's Tolkien is just master of words.
He is so good at just condensing everything down into like the most jam-packed sentences you can think of, and like you really do need to go through this like several times just to get like everything out of it. Like I've read Ainulindalë like maybe 3-4 times in the past 2 weeks, and I'm still getting more out of it. I'm like, oh, is that what that means? Oh, wow! And yeah, it's like, let's see here. It starts on page 15 and goes to page 32. So
yeah,
it's 17 pages, and there's so much in it, and all the Silmarillion is like that, and there are lots of people who have, of course now everybody's saying that, or Suzanne is saying that Sauron looks like Loki from the Avengers, so if ever a movie version is made, Tom Hiddleston should play him.
Basically, I mean, the bad guys knew what enticed other people, and if they looked evil, why would people come to them?
And Melkor also was very good at tricking and seducing people. Because there is a time, and I will try not to spoil too much, but there's a time where he dwelt in Valinor as a prisoner, and then gets let out, and basically convinces most of the Valar that he has reformed.
Yeah.
And then he does super, super awful things to them. But we'll get into that as we continue through the book. But this is all just the creation of all of this. We haven't even gotten into the creation of Valinor, the birth of the children of Iluvatar, the creation of the trees of Valinor, the chaining of Melkor, the creation of his stronghold, Utumno, and Thangorodrim.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much. There's so much in here, and so when what is seriously that's the line?
The line that Aragorn says in his book in the book, where an agent of the enemy would look fairer and feel fouler.
Yeah.
Because Aragorn does not look that great when he
Right.
first
No,
approaches the hobbits. He's travel worn, he's muddy, he's grim looking.
Yeah, and I think that's how Frodo describes Aragorn. Like when Sam says, "I don't trust him," he's like, "Well, and Frodo says, "I believe a servant of the enemy would look fairer and feel fouler."
Yeah. And then Aragorn's like, "So I look foul and feel fair."
Yeah, exactly. Like a little jab right there.
Yeah, no. Aragorn has a surprising sense of humor in the book. I think he's a very dry sense of humor.
Well, I mean, not to get too off track, but that's one of the big differences between the books and the movies. Is that in the books, Aragorn has already accepted his fate and is very. He's very okay with it, and therefore...
And he's working towards it.
Yeah.
He wants Arwen.
And so, therefore, he is a little bit more lighthearted during the adventure, as opposed to the movie Aragorn, who is still struggling with this identity crisis and is very grim and very dour. But, I mean, to be honest, like, I sort of feel like movie Aragorn works better in a movie setting.
I honestly just blame Elrond. Movie Elrond through.
Yeah.
Movie Elrond was a jerk.
Okay? He really was. He was a jerk.
He was a jerk. So he gave Aragorn bad self-esteem, even at 87 years old.
Yeah. Yes, he did.
Anyways.
But speaking of movies, because one of the things that I noticed a lot during the One Last Party is now that the Hobbit movies are over, a lot of people are saying, so does that mean that there's going to be a Silmarillion movie sometime soon? The quick answer is no.
Yeah.
The longer answer is, even if all the rights were to fall into place and all the stars were to align and a movie got greenlit, you could not do one movie of the Silmarillion. You would have to do several.
Yeah.
And
a TV show.
Or a TV show, yeah. I think on there was an episode of Torm Tuesday a few months ago where Cliff and Justin actually tried breaking the Silmarillion down into several movies that could comprise a Middle-earth cinematic universe, which I need to talk to them about that and see what they did with that.
Yeah.
or it's up on YouTube. I should just watch it. And Temple was saying it would be so difficult you'd have to go chapter by chapter pretty much. And it's true, because there are lots of chapters of this, and each one is its own self-contained story, but at the same time, they're all interrelated.
Yeah. So, like GOT.
Yeah, like Game of Thrones and Outlander. Like I look at the Silmarillion and I'm like, this is a story that is just as dense as A Song of Ice and Fire. But Song of Ice and Fire is 5 huge books. Tolkien was able to put that much information into about 300 pages.
Yeah, and
it really does sort of just make your head spin when you're reading it.
It's a shame that he didn't have enough time to extend some of those stories, because I would have killed to see a story, a full story of the Fall of Gondolin. I love that story.
Yeah, that's a great one. Now Marvels is asking, didn't Peter Jackson leave the door open in his last video message?
Wishful thinking.
That's a red herring, Marvels.
Yeah.
That was him just sort of like doing a little jab.
Yeah. Basically, the situation is Christopher Tolkien, who is J.R.R. Tolkien's son and heir,
and the editor of the Silmarillion,
and the editor of the Silmarillion. He is the one that made it published posthumously. Posthumously. I cannot say that word.
That's okay.
Posthumously.
After my botching of the Elvish pronunciations, we're okay here.
Yeah. So he has not sold the rights or licensed out the rights to make anything.
Anything beyond The Hobbit and the Silmarillion, or The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings.
No, he didn't do that. J.R.R. Tolkien.
Yeah.
Sold the rights for The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings back when he was still alive in the 60s.
And to a certain extent, Christopher Tolkien is really just honoring his father's wishes, which are J.R.R. he felt so pressured into selling the rights to it that he never wanted to go through that again. And plus, the movie that they were trying to make which was back in the 60s, was terrible.
Horrible.
So bad. And we are so lucky that movie never got made.
Yeah. For any quibbles or any, grievances you have with the Lord of the Rings or even the Hobbit films, especially the Lord of the Rings, it could have been so much worse.
It could have been so much worse. And it was
worse.
such a horrible experience for Tolkien that he really didn't want to go through that ever again with any of his other works. And so Christopher Tolkien has really tried to stay true to that. And so that's why he's stayed firm. Silmarillion, Unfinished Tales, History of Middle-earth, all that stuff.
Yeah, the Beatles did want to star.
Yes, everybody was saying the Beatles wanted to star in that movie. Yes, they did. Paul McCartney was going to be Frodo.
I remember that.
Wrap your head around that one.
So the only way we would see a Silmarillion movie is Christopher Tolkien is he's in his 90s now.
He is. He's firmly set on it.
Yeah, it would.
It's not like he needs the money.
No, they don't need the money.
Yeah.
It would have to be whoever inherits the estate afterwards, and if they have a change of heart. But it's
barring that, we would have to wait until Tolkien goes public domain, which would be 2043, I think.
Yeah, and at least for the Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings, I don't know how it works with the post.
I believe posthumously it still works the same.
Okay, so right now it's looking like 2043.
Yeah. So we're gonna have to wait a while for any sort of a Silmarillion movie or TV series or anything like that. And so now everybody's talking about all the different Beatles playing different roles in the Fellowship and face palming it.
Yeah.
George and Ringo as Merry and Pippin. I love the Beatles, but that would have been terrible. Twiggy was going to play Galadriel. It would have been a train wreck of a movie, and it would have ruined the burgeoning fandom of Tolkien at the time had that movie come out.
Yeah, and then there's also the Zimmerman script, which I read briefly about, and it was.
I don't think I read that one.
It's mentioned in his letters, and it's like there was like princes involved. It was condensed into one movie. I think it was Arwen and Frodo. It was really bad.
Oof.
It was really bad. And Tolkien, of course, was very against that.
Yeah, he was not having any of that. And so when you look at that, so bear all that in mind the next time you complain about Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings movies.
Yeah. I mean, I have issues with some of the things that Peter Jackson did.
So do I.
Yeah, because, especially with Elrond and Aragorn.
Yeah.
But,
it was a creative choice, and it's not one I say I entirely agree with, but it's also one that I understand for creating dramatic tension in the movie.
Yeah. Just, it could have been so much worse.
Yes, it could have been so much worse. I mean, even the Ralph Bakshi Lord of the Rings movie is a step up from what that movie would have been.
Yeah. I know, I've heard a lot of people absolutely adore the Ralph Bakshi movie. I don't know, I can't get behind it. Just the script was too butchered up.
I don't dislike it. But it's...
And the animation style is absolutely horrible.
Well, Bakshi was such a big fan of rotoscoping.
Yeah.
But the problem with Bakshi's animation is that his characters never sit still.
Yeah.
They are always moving.
Gandalf does this all the time.
Gandalf is dancing around Bag End as he gives the ring poem.
Yeah.
It's distracting.
Mm-hmm.
And Marfels is saying, I have a huge problem with Tauriel and Keeley. I believe we all do.
Yeah, I actually read someone who's a Tolkien scholar who actually, Michael Martinez, who has absolutely brilliant essays. He actually didn't have a problem with it. And I'm like, really? Really?
I don't have a problem with Tauriel as a character. I have a problem with the romance.
Yeah, he didn't have a problem with the romance. I'm like, really? I respect you, man. How could you? No, just a joke.
Honestly, I would have liked Tariel more had the romance not been there. I thought
I agree.
Tariel was a strong character who didn't need that.
I completely agree. Yeah, I completely.
But we don't want to go off on too much of
Yeah.
a tangent there.
And-
Like we're talking adaptations at this point.
Simply Smog. One word: money.
Simply Smog is saying, I don't understand why have the extended versions of The Hobbit when PJ had 3 movies to tell the story. Yes, money. Although
Warner, probably more pushed by Warner Brothers.
well, yeah. Although I will say, at least for the Desolation of Smaug, the extended edition did actually enhance stuff and brought in stuff that was from the book that wasn't in the theatrical version.
I actually still haven't seen it. It's just I haven't gotten down and bought it yet.
It's not bad. I actually feel the extended version of Desolation enhances the movie more than the extended version of Unexpected Journey does.
Yeah, Unexpected Journey was really disappointing compared to the other.
Yeah, like I actually just rewatched the entire trilogy over the last couple of days because I got a special pre-order HD download of Battle of the Five Armies. So I was able to watch the whole trilogy back to back to back, and it doesn't quite it still does not hold up for me.
Yeah.
Like it's got its strengths, but it also has its weaknesses, and I feel that as a whole story, it's too bogged down in too many distractions.
Yeah. I think the perfect story would have been 2 movies like they planned.
Yeah, I think so too.
Oh well. Anyway.
Although I will say, like, while watching them, I was sort of like planning out, like, okay, how could I edit this down into one solid 3-hour movie, which I know some people have done.
Yeah.
And I don't say that as like absolutely hating the movies or disliking the movies. I actually, like, for all their flaws, I actually do enjoy them. I do find them entertaining. But I think it would be a fun editing exercise to take those 3 and try to distill them down into one solid 3-hour Hobbit movie.
Yeah, I'd be okay with 2.
Yeah.
Anyway, totally off tangent.
Yeah, we're totally getting off here, but yeah. So when did you first read the Silmarillion? I'm just curious.
When I was 14 years old.
14,
so first year of high school, and
Okay.
it was it was a tough read. Most of it went over my head. Most of it really went over my head, and then I reread it again at the end of high school, and then I don't remember if I read it in college, but I did read it about 1.5 years ago, which was my last time.
Okay. Yeah. I read the Silmarillion in high school first time too. I had just finished reading Lord of the Rings, completely blown away by it. I wanted more of that, and so I'm like, okay, got to read the Silmarillion. And so I went into the Silmarillion sort of expecting the same thing that I got from Lord of the Rings, which is like a solid narrative with the same characters throughout. Silmarillion is not that. And it was hard for me to like keep pace with it, and so I got a good way through it, but I never actually fully finished it. And now this is actually my second time reading it now, and as you can see from the bookmark, I'm about halfway through, and I am just loving it now. Like, I am getting so much out of this. I'm like going back and like reading different sections. I'm like, okay, is that what that means? Because one of the things that I notice in this is that in certain chapters, Tolkien will mention sort of offhandedly something unrelated that then becomes the central focus of a later chapter.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, I haven't even gotten to the Beren and Luthien chapter yet, but Beren and Luthien have been mentioned like about 5 or 6 times already. just like in passing, it's like, and nobody knew where men went after they died except Beren because of his stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I want to know more about that.
How about you guys? How old were you when you first read the Silmarillion, or is this your first time reading it?
Yeah. And if so, how are you liking it?
Yeah. If we are working live.
There's a little bit of a delay on the chat, so that's okay. Everybody saying, I love Beren and Luthien.
It's one of my favorite stories.
I actually remember reading it back in high school, and that was a section that I really, really loved. And so I'm looking forward to hitting that chapter again. I'm like maybe 2 chapters away from it. Let's see, now we're getting Temple saying she was in her 20s.
14 years ago.
Simply,
new reader?
Who's the new reader?
Simply Smaug.
Oh, Simply Smaug is a new reader. Excellent.
Awesome.
Eravani is I was 22
last year.
And Suzanne was mid-20s. We're not going to say how long ago that was, Suzanne, because we respect you too much. Lady Rowan says I have a first edition. Nice.
Oh, nice. I own a second American edition that I found in a thrift store. That's probably the most I have. Once I win the lottery, I'm going to be getting those first editions.
Yeah. And Ava's saying I read it in full last year. It's my favorite book now.
Nice.
Awesome.
That's okay. That's what this...
LOTR fan is saying, I haven't read it yet, Ducks for Cover. There's no shame in that, LOTR fan.
I mean, this rundown was to help you...
We're kind of doing this as a primer for everybody and to have this discussion because the Silmarillion is so dense. The Silmarillion is very dense, and there's a lot to get through, and like it would be nice to have like these discussions and to sort of help get other people into it and interested in it, and even maybe understand it a little bit more.
Yeah, I don't think there is an annotated version of the Silmarillion.
No, there isn't. I think the only annotated Tolkien book is The Hobbit.
And then they have a reader's companion for The Lord of the Rings.
Yes. God, how big would an annotated Lord of the Rings be?
That's why they made it a reader's companion.
Yeah. That's a book unto itself. Let's see. So, what does Lady Rowan say? I have to look at the date. I guess I was in my 20s. So, Eravani saying, I'm loving the discussion. It's the first book club book I've actually read. Well, I always try to keep our mix of books eclectic, but I felt it was time for us to like really dive into the Silmarillion. And I've been wanting to do the Silmarillion for a while, but I also wanted to do it in a way that was paid its special attention, as opposed to just like one episode talking about a book, because there is no way you can cover all the Silmarillion in one book or in one episode.
No, and I mean, we're on the OneRing.net. It's a Tolkien book. Let's cover the whole bloody thing.
I wanted to do something special, and this is not the only Silmarillion thing I'm going to be doing. We're going to be doing more episodes like this, but this is also, in addition to these discussions, I'm also going to be creating special 5 to 10 minute YouTube videos that will give a good summary and analysis of every chapter.
Yeah.
And Temple is saying, could we do a Terry Pratchett sometime just to honor him, or maybe each of us can read one of his and talk about his writing in general. Sorry to get a little off topic.
I love Terry Pratchett.
No, that's a great idea, Temple, and
maybe after the Silmarillion.
Well, the Silmarillion is going to take a while, but
are you going to be doing it consecutively, or are you going to be interspersing?
I'm probably going to intersperse stuff, but I would love to talk about Terry Pratchett and go over Discworld. I've read some of the Discworld books, probably about the first 6, I think, and I absolutely adore Terry Pratchett, and I was heartbroken when he passed. But yeah, I would love to talk about Discworld at some point. It's something I've been wanting to do for a while, to talk about Discworld, but I think now with Terry Pratchett's passing, we might try to do something on Pratchett sometime next month.
Suzanne.
Susanna's saying, I want to come on the show next week and I'll do a synopsis with Barbie dolls. Oh God, that would be hilarious. Well, the next chapters we're going to be going over. Let's see if I can find them in the table of contents. Um, are going to be the first two chapters of the Quenta Silmarillion, which are of the beginning of days and of Aule and Yavanna.
So get a Ken Barbie doll and a green, a Barbie doll in green dress.
Yeah, you need a Barbie doll with a lot of leaves on her, and a Ken doll with a big hammer.
Yeah.
And then if anybody has like some sort of, you could probably use like a Sauron figure or even a Darth Vader figure as Morgoth.
Little Darth Vader. Yeah, Darth Vader. No, this is Morgoth.
And Temple is saying maybe use some Monster High dolls just to get some of the evil characters too. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're coming up on roughly about an hour and a half, maybe a little less than that, but that's where we are now. And of course, in addition to the Silmarillion, we also have our book of the month, which is Middle Earth Madness, which we'll be talking about on April 5th.
There should be a show next Sunday.
Yeah, I stole the One Ring is saying, can you tell me if there's going to be a show next Sunday? There definitely will be a show next Sunday. Like I said, next week we're going to be talking about the beginning of days and Aule and Yavanna.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he can hear us or not. So I know I think that was the person who was having issue with their connection. So yeah, we will be, or at least Josh will be.
Well, you're welcome to come back if you want.
I think my friend from out of town is coming in, so I will be.
Well, Suzanne, bring your Barbie dolls.
Yeah, Suzanne, come on in.
So yes, there will be a show next Sunday, talking about the beginning of the actual Silmarillion and what even though like this is called the Silmarillion, and I stole it as a she.
Oh, yes.
Sorry. Yeah, this even though it's called the Silmarillion and it's about the jewels known as the Silmarils, they don't come into play for a while still.
Yeah, that'll be a few chapters in.
Mm-hmm. And LOTR fan saying, I believe there's a show every Sunday. I try to do it every Sunday. There will be some Sundays where I can't, and I will let you know ahead of time when that's the case. But now that we're getting into the Silmarillion, now I have something that I can talk about week to week. Mm-hmm. It's been difficult, like coming up with stuff to talk about week after week after week. But now we're getting into it, and we're not going to stop with the Silmarillion. We're also going to, after that, we're going to go into Unfinished Tales, and then after that, we're going to go into Children of Hurin. And then, yes, we're even going to do The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings.
Oh, those will be...
This can go on for years, people.
Absolutely.
So I consider those to be sort of like the beginning of I consider those books to sort of be like the core of the Middle Earth saga.
Absolutely.
Like, I mean, yes, there is the 12-volume history of Middle Earth, but...
That's more of the history of how the writing developed than anything.
And it's fascinating stuff, like especially the Book of Lost Tales, so you can sort of see like Tolkien's own thought process. And also like reading some stuff for like from early drafts of Lord of the Rings.
I love reading the early drafts, especially the first book. It's so funny.
Well, one of my favorite bits is actually towards the end, where originally Sam fought a Nazgul on Mount Doom.
Oh yeah.
After as Frodo is fighting Gollum for the ring, Sam has to fight a Nazgul at the gates. And Tolkien got rid of that because he realized it was just a little too much.
Yeah.
Marfels is asking, but isn't the Silmarillion depressing too?
It definitely
it has its moments. It has its moments for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it has both. It has great part. It has its large triumphant parts and then utter sad destruction parts. I mean,
Yeah.
the reason the elves by the Third Age are all calm and peaceful are because all the destructive ones ended up killing themselves in the First Age.
Yeah.
It really seems like that, doesn't it?
It really does. And I mean, there is like, I mean, again, without going into too many spoilers, there is a certain curse on the elves. Like even the ones that we see in Lord of the Rings, Galadriel and all of them, they have a very specific curse placed on them early on in the First Age.
Oath. Oaths are very, very, very serious stuff.
Yeah. So, what is that? Temple is saying, I think Tolkien really understood that there was beauty in a range of experiences, whether truly happy or horribly painful. And that's sort of what I feel like one of the main themes bringing back to the Ainulindalë is that you can't just have the good and the bad separately. Like they have to commingle and they have to work together. And that's one of the things that I love is like Eru never scolds Melkor for all of the chaos that he's creating. He always just says, "You can do whatever you want. It's still going to be a part of the greater theme."
Mm-hmm.
And it always is. And that's one of the things that I love about that is that as disruptive as Melkor thinks he is, he's always playing to a greater plan that even he can't see.
Mm-hmm.
And that's that's why I love like the good and the bad.
Absolutely.
And yeah, and so yeah, that's sort of like my big takeaway from it is like is how good and bad commingle, and neither is wholly good and neither is wholly bad. Like one of the things that in this that we didn't talk about was the creation of snow and ice. Melkor creates snow as a way to disrupt the waters, and Ulmo is livid about this. Like he cannot stand it. He hates this. And he finally goes to Eru and he's like, Melkor is ruining my oceans. And Eru says, well, look at what he's doing. Look at the beauty in the ice, and look at the storms that he's creating that are spreading water across the land. And look at all these things that you never even thought about with water that Melkor's chaos is creating. And Ulmo finally has to accept that, and he realizes that for all the evil that Melkor is doing, he actually is enhancing everything else that everybody else is doing.
Yeah. I mean, snow is gorgeous too.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine a world without snow.
Yeah, yeah. And of course, I mean, snow is also quite treacherous, as we see with the march along. Well, in the real world.
Yeah, in the real world,
in the real world, snow is sort of wreaking havoc with everybody, except here in beautiful sunny California.
Yeah, snow. What snow? I don't see any snow.
No, it's just another beautiful day. Ugh, another one of those.
It was 90 degrees Fahrenheit yesterday.
Oh God, I was driving down to a friend's for Pi Day.
I went to Marie Callender's for Pi Day.
Nice. A bunch of people brought Marie Callender's for Pi Day. But I was driving, like it was hitting 98 on the way down.
Yeah,
I was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, so sorry for all of you stuck in snow right now. We do not know the meaning of snow here. But Melkor knew what snow was, so he hasn't touched California yet.
Yeah. We're safe for now. But one of the, of course, snow in the Silmarillion is also quite treacherous, like an area known as the Helcarax.
The Helcaraxe
Helcaraxe.
got the little
Yeah,
umlaut.
Yeah, the Helcaraxe, which already sounds like a treacherous place.
Yeah, Helcaraxe. I love that word.
Yeah, and it's a snowy land bridge between Valinor and Middle Earth.
Sort of like the Bering Strait.
Yeah.
When it existed.
Mm-hmm. But we'll get to that later.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we can end it there for now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you for joining us in this first discussion of the Silmarillion. And excuse me, remember our book of the month is Middle Earth Madness. We'll be having several of the authors on April 5th to discuss that. So thank you, Suvi, for coming in and being a part of this.
And I'll be back, sometime. Definitely. I love
Cool.
the Silmarillion.
Yeah. Well, you are welcome anytime when we're doing Silmarillion or anytime.
Yeah.
Just come on by.
Mm-hmm.
It's all good. And so I want to thank everybody who was in the chat. There's a lot of you there, but Suzanne and Eravandi, thank you both for answering the questions in the chat that we couldn't get to.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you all to everybody for being a part of this. And I'm looking forward to exploring more of Middle Earth with all of you and going through the Silmarillion chapter by chapter and learning this beautiful, rich history of Middle Earth. And so I will see you all next week for the beginning of time and Aule and Yavanna, and never stop reading.
Yeah.